So here's some preventative measures. Never again drink tap water. Only the purest reverse osmosis water. This is huge. If you're drinking your city's tap water, trusting that it's free of the mercury, lead, and arsenic and so forth, you're a fucking fool. Stop eating seafood and organ meat. Seafood contains a lot of mercury, and organ meat, God knows what's in that organ meat. If you're eating liver and things like this, even if you're eating organic liver from grass-fed cows or whatever, you have no idea the kind of water that these cows receive. Even if it's organic cows, grass-fed cows, they still probably get, toxic fucking cheap-ass water. They're not drinking pure spring water. They're drinking some sort of industrial sludge that, saves pennies on the gallon for the companies, for the farmers. And, they don't care about your health. So, and then you're eating that organ meat, you're eating that liver. That liver collects and stores all the toxins in the cow's body, and so forth with other organ meats. Be very careful with supplements, spices, protein powders, teas, and really any kind of powders, especially protein powders. I've read some very scary research where they actually took some of the most popular brands of protein powders, not just whey powders, but also vegan powders, vegetable powders, all organic. And what they found is that the organic powders have even more heavy metals than the inorganic ones. So just because it says all natural, vegan, organic does not mean it doesn't have heavy metals in it. Don't be a fool. This is just marketing talk. There's also been a recent research on spices. Certain spices are very contaminated with heavy metals. I'll be actually posting on my blog over the next week. On my blog, I'll be posting an article about the worst, most toxic spices. Be careful about that. That's a hidden source of heavy metal exposure. Supplements, a lot of supplements have also been found to be contaminated with heavy metals. So don't take supplements that you don't really need. Only take the most essential supplements, and be very careful about the brands. Try to find the most trusted brands. In general, be suspicious of any kind of powders that you're consuming on a daily basis. Those powders, when you powder down a food and you concentrate it like you do with a protein powder, right? With a protein powder, you're basically taking like 5 gallons of milk and you're condensing it all down to like a little cup of whey protein powder. Think about that concentration process, how it distills and concentrates all the heavy metals, because those are not getting evaporated. And the same thing if you're talking about vegetables, you take 10 pounds of kale and spinach and other stuff, and then you grind it all down into a cup of powder. Think of all the pesticides, they all get concentrated in that little cup. And then you consume that every single day in your smoothie. You're basically poisoning yourself every day, thinking that you're being healthy when you actually aren't. Also, be very careful with store-bought bone broths. Bone broths are sort of like a hip, trendy health trend, I guess you could say. These days, they're supposed to be very healthy and so forth. These bone broths, because they also concentrate, you're taking a bunch of meat, boiling it all down, some vegetables, boiling it all down to a single cup, and then all the heavy metals are getting concentrated in there, and then you're drinking that on a daily basis thinking it's healthy for you when you're just poisoning yourself. Baby food has been notoriously found to be filled with heavy metals. And this is especially egregious and bad because for babies with developing brains, this is much, much worse than for adults. And by the way, if you have children, you should be taking this episode extra seriously if you care about the health and cognitive performance of your children. A lot of children, I think, develop ADD, autism, and other sorts of, learning disabilities and disorders because a lot of the food, the baby food and other sort of packaged food that is given to kids, this is the most atrocious, low quality, literally poisonous food that you could imagine. So be very careful about this. And even with your pets, if you have a dog or a cat that you love and you're feeding it the cheapest kinds of cat and dog food, which is definitely contaminated with the worst kinds of heavy metals, it's going to add up and kill your fucking cat or your dog. especially because they're so small compared to humans, that affects them even more than it does humans. So be extra careful there. If you want to know what the worst spices are, the most contaminated spices that it's been recently found is oregano and thyme. Stop using those. They are filled with heavy metals, even the organic versions of those spices. Remember that organic and all natural does not mean it's free of heavy metals. It also does not mean that it's free of pesticides. Organic food is filled with organic pesticides, and organic pesticide is not good for you in many cases. People overlook this because they get just brainwashed with this sort of marketing and branding. A lot of so-called organic and natural products, a lot of the vegan products, a lot of the products that look like they're, very healthy products that you buy at the health food store, when you do testing on it, it's found that that product contains even more heavy metals than just your normal supermarket product. So there's no guarantee that just because you're eating something organic or very expensive or all natural or from a health food store, that it's not contaminated, it's not horrible for you. Be careful also with makeup. Makeup can notoriously have lead and mercury and other heavy metals in it that can get absorbed through your skin if you're using a lot of makeup, for you ladies. Be careful with the toxic fumes, solvents, chemicals, and paints. Like maybe you're using glue around your house, some sort of like epoxy that has toxic fumes coming out of it. Maybe you're doing some work around your house using chemicals, cleaners, bleaches, various kinds of paints. Especially if you're doing a lot of like housing work, construction work, be careful breathing in those fumes. When you're considering your living situation, don't rent apartments and don't buy a house near any major highways. There's research that basically says that if you live within a mile of a major highway, that this increases your risk of cancer and other kinds of health problems, just simply from the pollution that comes from that highway. So try to live at least a mile away from any major highway. Be careful with ammunition and gun ranges. If you are someone who likes to go shooting at a shooting range and you're using lead ammunition, every time you fire that lead ammunition, that lead gets vaporized, small particles of that bullet gets vaporized, and then you're breathing that in. And everybody around you standing there firing, they're also breathing it in and causing a giant invisible smog cloud of vaporized lead. Pretty disgusting. So what do? Well, either stop going to the gun range, or at the very least, you can find gun ranges actually. There's a gun range in Vegas here, which is completely lead-free. They force you to use lead-free ammunition, and I recommend you purchase lead-free ammunition. It costs more money, but you can find ammunition that's coated in copper or I'm not that familiar with the different kinds there are, but there are lead-free ammos that you can purchase. So definitely go with that. And make sure that you remove all fluorescent lighting from your house or from your place of work. Because the fluorescent lighting, if it breaks, it's filled with toxic fumes and heavy metals, and it's a giant pain in the ass to clean that up. It's very toxic. Nowadays, it's very easy and cheap to purchase LED lights. They last for a decade. They're super energy efficient. There's no need to be purchasing fluorescent lights at all. In fact, I think they should be banned because they're so toxic. And recycling them is a big pain in the ass. You can't just throw fluorescent lighting into a garbage can.